It is January 5th, 2023 here. And I decided to do another podcast. It's been a bit. It has indeed been a bit since the last one. I think Wrestle Kingdom was the last one I did. Which wasn't the plan, since I did originally state that we were planning to be more active this year, and then immediately took 3 weeks off, 3-4 weeks, but that's in the past. We did our Wrestle Kingdom review. It was a good time, and I'm here now, so I'm going to talk about Dynamite, and hopefully I'll be able to stick to this every Wednesday night recording, and then this will go up again late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, depending on how long these go. It's a solo show, at least as of now, so not expecting it to be too long, but regardless, I appreciate if you're tuning into this. If you're new, please consider subscribing to the podcast wherever you're listening to. We are on YouTube or anywhere that you can find podcast streaming, such as Anchor, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google, Spotify, the works, Apple. Plenty of places you can find us. You can also follow us on Twitter. You'll notice, if you are listening, that we have new graphics. Don't know if they're permanent. The more I look at it, the more I want to change it slightly. I just want to fix the secondary text, the wrestling podcast part of it. But we'll see. Again, it's just, you got to get used to the change. Aside from the last edition of the podcast from me, which was our Wrestle Kingdom review, we did have Ryan release a Hard to Kill review from Impact Wrestling. We both watched the show. I did not do the review with him, but it's a good show. So you can check that out. That's on our YouTube channel. I believe Ryan and Angelo are looking to get back into the swing of things with Impact this week. We'll see how that goes. It's also the Royal Rumble week, so we'll probably have predictions and or a review out for that show, but we'll play it by ear. I don't want to commit to that, so if you're listening to this and there's never a review that comes out, then I didn't promise one, but it is what it is. So thank you. We're also closing in on 300 subscribers on YouTube, so hopefully we can hit that soon. We are at 286. So if you're listening to this and you're not subscribed on YouTube, please help us out. Help us hit 300. We'd appreciate it. Anyways, enough chit-chat. Let's just get on into things with AEW Dynamite from January 25th, 2023. We kick things off here with Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara taking on Ricky Starks and Action Andretti. And you can tell this is going to be a packed show because Chris Jericho and Sammy were in the middle of their entrance as we came here to the show live. So mid-entrance here, Ricky Starks got a fantastic ovation, as tends to be the case at this point. Man is one of the most over people in the company. And I feel like that's a testament to him as a performer and also the booking that he's got since the World Title Eliminator last November. So very good to see that, despite him failing to win the World Championship from MJF, Starks has seemingly only gotten more over, which is good. I would assume he's going to win something this year, like a title. I don't know what. I don't think he'd win the world title. I could see him getting like the All-Atlantic or the TNT belt, but yeah. So this was coming off of 2 major losses here for Jericho. Commentary noted that it is the first back-to-back losses of Jericho's entire AEW career, and they were against Ricky Starks and Action Andretti. So this was Jericho trying to put this behind him, and he was teaming with Sammy Guevara, which came to be from Rampage after, I believe, Action Andretti beat Daniel Garcia. So then Sammy took the spot in the match. This would start very fast here with Guevara and Andretti. Andretti just doing a lot of big, acrobatic stuff here. Just quick exchanges of pin attempts and counters with one another and coming to a standstill. Guevara would ask for a handshake, and Andretti would just eat a very stiff super kick to the face here. And then Sammy would control here. Crowd would come to life begging for Starks to get the tag. Though they'd briefly come back behind Andretti here as he hit a great counter off the top rope with a head scissors and then a beautiful standing Spanish fly. Starks and Jericho get the hot tags for their teams, and again, Ricky just came in here and the crowd went like bananas for him. After getting cocky, going up to the top rope and doing old school, Sammy Guevara comes out of nowhere and flies back into the ring with a huge springboard cutter to free up Jericho. Great spot. And just a reminder that Sammy Guevara is a very good wrestler. Andretti catches the hot tag and lights up Jericho and Sammy with a flurry of offense here and scores big with a pair of backbreakers and neck breakers, and then does a duo of suicide dives onto Jericho and Guevara. Ricky scores big with a springboard DDT, allowing Andretti to land a moonsault out of the corner for a 2 count on Sammy. Andretti gets taken out on the outside. Jericho eats just a big spear from Ricky Starks here, and Sammy gets taken out here briefly. Roll up from Jericho gets countered by Starks into a huge powerbomb for a near fall. Andretti nails Jericho with a springboard enziguri before then looking for a split-legged moonsault, but Jericho gets the knees up. Huge jumping knee from Sammy Guevara. He teases the GTH, but Andretti escapes and connects with yet another enziguri. Just a brutal poison Rana lands here from Action Andretti, and he follows up with a hanging neckbreaker for a 2 count. On the outside, Starks levels Jericho with the Rochambeau, and while this is happening, Garcia takes out Action Andretti with the bat, allowing Sammy to land the GTH. And Sammy and Chris Jericho win this, and they end Action Andretti's undefeated streak since signing with the company. I thought this was actually very good. I thought it was a fun time here in the opener. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think Sammy Guevara was the MVP of this match by far. I thought he was just wonderful to watch. I really hope that he gets to, get some better stuff this year, because last year was definitely not his year storyline-wise. He was all over the place. So I do hope that eventually we get something for him. I don't know what I would want. Again, I would like to see him versus Darby Allin again for the TNT belt. Those two have insane chemistry. You could also do him versus Orange Cassidy for the TNT belt. Or not TNT, the All Atlantic belt. I feel like that would be a fun one. I don't know. Sammy Guevara is a very good wrestler, so I just don't want him just hanging around. And yeah, I thought the ending just made sense here. Again, Andretti and Starks have had the upper hand throughout this feud, and it took Garcia to cheat here for Jericho and Sammy to get the win. Makes sense, extends the feud slightly, and Jericho and Sammy don't beat Action Andretti and Ricky Starks clean. So we had a beautiful video package here shown that was dedicated to the life and career of Jay Briscoe, showing his time in Ring of Honor, winning championships, his feud with Jay Lethal. Just some of his promos, his promo style. We had videos of him and his family, him dancing with his kids. Just great stuff. And again, this is what last week, his death was out of nowhere. So even if this all got cleared, it would have been hard to put everything together that quickly. But this is what I think everybody wanted from like a tribute show to Jay Lethal, for Dynamite. And it was one, and it was done very well. After this, we'd go to the TNT Championship match this week for Darby Allin versus Buddy Matthews. I did miss the first half of this due to some extenuating reasons, but it is what it is. I did see a good portion of this regardless. So, worth noting that Darby Allin and Sting are both coming off of the final bye-bye End of Nightmare match from the Noah show the other day, where they teamed with the Great Muta in his final match, the Great Muta's final match, not KG Muta's final match. But is it the Great Muta's final match? Because again, I still feel like there's a chance this man shows up in the Rumble on Saturday. We'll see. Against Hakushi, Marufuji, and Akira. I'm glad I remembered everybody in that match. So again, I wrote here in my notes, I missed the first half of this, but I came back and was informed that Ortiz came out to fight off the House of Black with Sting. Upon return here to the actual match, Darby would spike Buddy with a poison Rana before slamming Matthews into the barricade. Big crucifix bomb from Darby Allin for a 2 count lands. Both guys get laid out as they just lay down here. Knee strike gets attempted by Buddy, but Darby evades and looks for the code red. Buddy dodges and drops Darby in the corner with a buckle bomb, followed up by a curb stomp for a near fall. Great sequence. I don't get to brag, or not brag. I don't get to, what's the word? I don't get to gush about him enough, but I'm a big Buddy Matthews fan. I love this guy when he was in the Blake and Murphy tag team in NXT. I saw him win the NXT Tag Team Championships at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn back in 2015. I loved him as the Juggernaut on 205 Live. He was a staple of the Cruiserweight division when that show did not matter, and it was so good. That show was fantastic. And, you know, anytime he's gotten a chance to show off in AEW, he's taken the ball. So he did here. Murphy's Law gets looked for, but Darby gets out with the code red for his own 2 count. Champ goes high. Both men go to the top rope. Matthews looks for a superplex, but Darby counters with a scorpion death drop off the top rope, but Matthews somehow kicks out at 2. Darby sets up for the coffin drop, but Buddy makes it out to the apron to try and stop him. He gets dropped and then draped over the middle rope, and Darby flies off and delivers the coffin drop in brutal fashion as Darby Allin retains. After the match, Samoa Joe returns to TV, appearing on the screen and stating that he is coming for what's his. The King has spoken, and he's coming back for the TNT Championship as we head towards Darby Allin versus Samoa Joe 3, which got announced for next week, and it is a no-holds-barred match. I thought this was very good. I didn't see the full thing, obviously, but I feel like if I did, I would give this a great rating. But from what I saw, I thought this was just awesome stuff from top to bottom. And we did get the shout-out to the final bye-bye from commentary this weekend. And yeah, I'm just very excited about Darby's reign so far, and I think a third and final match between he and Samoa Joe sounds incredible at this point. This dude is off to a killer start with his matches. We had the Samoa Joe match where he won the belt. We had him defending against Juice Robinson, him defending against Mike Bennett, him defending against Kushida last week, and now him against Buddy Matthews here. So, and then Samoa Joe next week. So Darby Allin is just attempting to have the best title reign of the year so far, and it's hard to debate. He's killing it. This would send us to our next match, which was Ethan Page and Matt Hardy versus JungleHOOK. I do want to say off the bat, as somebody who does occasionally watch Dark Elevation, I really love Ethan Page, and I think that, you know, this pairing of him, Matt Hardy, Private Party in the Firm, it started off whack, but I think they found pretty great chemistry with one another on that show, and they've got a good comedic dynamic here, and I'm a fan. This starts fast with Ethan Page looking for Ego's Edge on Hook on the floor, but Jungle Boy soars to break it up. Matt Hardy takes control. Him and Ethan dominate Jack Perry here. Back from commercial break, Jack Perry flies off the ropes to be caught into the side effect from Matt, but he teases the twist of fate. Ethan Page demands the tag, and he comes in for his own version, gets locked in the snare trap, and as he goes to make the tag, Matt doesn't come into the ring to break up the submission. He just keeps basically teasing and calling for the tag, but Ethan can't make it, and he taps out after Hook drops Matt off the apron. I thought it was good. It was a short, fun match here. It wasn't anything blow away, but it was a fun showcase for two younger stars in the form of Hook and Jungle Boy. And it furthered the storyline between Ethan and Matt Hardy. It's just a mid-card thing at this point, but JungleHOOK got a clean win here. I can't really complain. Yeah, I don't really know what else you would like. I guess the only thing I would have else put in here is a swerve thing, because him and Mogul affiliates, but at the same time, you still need to put if you take out Jungle Boy and Hook, then people are gonna be like, "Where's Jungle Boy and Hook?" So you got to balance it. You know, some weeks you get Jungle Boy and Hook, some weeks you don't. Some weeks you get Swerve, some weeks you don't. It's whatever. We have family therapy next with the Acclaimed Billy Gunn and the Guns. We have the therapist here. She doesn't really do anything. She just sits there and takes her glasses off at one point for a good reaction shot. Austin and Colton raise some valid points here about Billy being a bad father due to him having the WWE schedule of 320 days of the 365-day year on the road. And also raise a valid point that they helped Bowens when he was in a wheelchair last year. The Acclaimed say that the Ass Boys are pieces of shit, and Billy is determined to resolve this. The Guns say all they want is the tag team titles, and they walk out. Again, some people really don't like the Guns. I think they've become a pretty solid team, and I think they're very enjoyable heels. I would point to their funeral for FTR as a glaring example of this. I thought that was a fantastic segment they did back on January 4th. I think they can be very entertaining. I've been saying I think they were going to be the ones to dethrone the Acclaimed. I don't know if it's going to happen at this point, just because it seems like we're going to this match at Revolution probably, if not beforehand. I don't know if they're going to take the titles off the Acclaimed that quickly. But we'll see. Again, they've had the belts since September. So it's not like they're having a short reign, but we'll see. Regardless, it makes sense. It's a long-term story that they're playing off of from last year, and it makes sense. So, yeah. Back from break, we have Renee Paquette and Hangman Page bringing up that this all started between him and Moxley in Ohio, and next week they're going to be in Dayton. Page says that he wants to knock out Jon Moxley. Wheeler Yuta appears and challenges Hangman for Friday. Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page 3 is set for Dynamite next week, and Wheeler Yuta versus Hangman is set for Rampage. Big match this week on Rampage. Up next, the next match in Bryan Danielson's Road to Revolution, as I'm calling it here, as he takes on Brian Cage, one-third of the ROH World Six-Man Champions of the Embassy, along with Khan and Toa Liona. This is a match I was looking forward to quite a bit. I'm a big supporter of Brian Cage as a wrestler. I think this guy is so undervalued and underrated. Does he have the greatest charisma? No, but he has Prince Nana, who does. And so I was a big fan of again, spoiler, I was a big fan of this match, and I was just a big fan of seeing this. So yeah, Bryan, it's Bryan and Bryan. So Danielson, I should say, looks to take down the machine quickly here with just quick offense and strikes, but gets outpowered by Cage. Danielson eventually gets Cage down and just unloads with elbow strikes to the head, but Cage escapes, and then the LaBelle lock gets put in. We tease a tap out quickly here, and Cage then gets his bottom foot on the rope. A baseball kick through the ropes before diving from Danielson as he sends Cage into the barricade. Danielson goes high and comes off the top turnbuckle with a crossbody to the floor. And finally, after eating offense after offense, Cage would finally destroy Danielson here with a press slam into the corner, coming back with kicks and a massive release German suplex out of the corner before both would head out onto the apron, and Cage just slams Bryan back first on the apron into break. This is a great sequence from Brian Cage. And Danielson sold it fantastically. Back from commercial, Brian Cage has a bear hug locked in, locking the arm of Danielson up as well. Bryan gets out and lights up the big man with kicks to the leg to get free. Cage rebounds with a lariat before catching Danielson midair with a shoulder breaker. Danielson goes out to the apron. Cage climbs the ropes and suplexes Danielson back into the ring with ease. Danielson then slides to the opposite apron, and Cage does it to him a second time. Great spot. We get the cheeky Nando's kick from Brian Cage in the corner, and he goes up top looking for an avalanche powerbomb, but Danielson manages to fight it off. He gets sent back into the ring and then flies in the corner with a flying kick to take out Cage before bringing him back down with a superplex. Cage is now downed on his knees, and Danielson begins unloading with the kicks and finishes him off with a kick to the head for another 2 count here. The American Dragon grabs the arms, stomping the head of Cage before looking for a triangle hold. Cage escapes and looks for a powerbomb, but Bryan gets out and gets an ankle lock in. We had a rolling elbow from Danielson, discus lariat from Cage, a buckle bomb from Brian Cage, and as he looks for a powerbomb, Danielson rolls him up for another win with just a crazy finish here. Just start unloading. I thought this was great. I gave this a great rating. I thought this was just so fun to watch. Danielson is just an all-time great, and Brian Cage is he rules. This ruled. Both guys look great. With the news of Brian Cage's contract being up soon, I really hope he re-signs with AEW. I think he's been super impressive since he returned in September. Oh, excuse me. And I really hope that he decides to stay, or that AEW decides to keep him. After the match, Brian Cage and Prince Nana attack Bryan Danielson, with Cage laying out Danielson, and they just attack the arm. MJF comes out here. Bryan gets laid out and just brutalized. They look to basically break the arm, and eventually Takeshita has to arrive and clear house, and likely sets up a match between Takeshita and Cage, and possibly even MJF versus Takeshita. Very exciting stuff. We go backstage to see Danielson after the break, and he's shown in the trainer's room with Doc Samson saying that he shouldn't wrestle. Bryan just fires up and delivers just a fiery promo here, saying he wrestled for 60 minutes with a torn shoulder. He's never going to listen to the doctors again. You can't stop him from wrestling. And he's not only going to expose MJF as a bad wrestler, but he's going to expose him as a fraud of a man when he peels back the mask. Great stuff from Bryan, and I'm very much looking forward to this feud. This is not even this feud. We're in the feud. I'm looking forward to the match, the Iron Man match that we're getting at Revolution. This is going to be great. That takes us to Toni Storm versus Ruby Soho. This was supposed to be a triple threat between those two and Britt Baker. But Britt got pulled earlier today due to injury. I have no idea if she's actually injured or if this was them playing off of Dark from last night where she possibly broke her nose or just got busted open during her match with Billy Starks. Whatever the case, they pulled Britt from this match. It made sense, and I think it was probably better for her. I don't really think Britt would have added anything to this, especially with how it ended. I don't know what the planned finish was going to be, but I think it made most sense, especially for what they were doing here. It made sense for this to just be a singles match. So obviously the ongoing story in the women's division is the battle lines being drawn between the AEW originals / homegrown talent versus the outsiders, with Saraya and Toni Storm officially going heel last week. And we now so the sides right now are Toni Storm and Saraya on one side. And then we have Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker on the other. In the middle of still undeclared, we have Ruby Soho, Hikaru Shida. Willow Nightingale seems to be on the side with Britt and Jamie. So we're going to be keeping track of all these sides and different pieces here as we move on. But this match saw Toni Storm wrestle for the first time fully as a heel here. She came out with new gear, new hairstyle, new facial mannerisms, facial expressions. She wrestled a more aggressive physical style. And I thought that was great. I thought Toni Storm was fantastic here. I think that this part of the match was when she faked her nose injury after, we know she broke her nose or broke part of her face during her match with Jamie Hayter at Full Gear. She teased it here, and then it was a fake out, and her facial expression after that, I thought that was just like the selling point of yeah, Toni makes sense as a heel. Before the match we get promos from Ruby and Toni, and Toni calls the homegrown talents in AEW homegrown idiots, and says that Ruby has become a misfit. Also noteworthy that at least in AEW this is a first time singles match, so that was pretty cool. Ruby and Toni lock up to start, but Toni reels off to the floor. Commentary plays up the battle lines being drawn in the division. It's pretty clear what's happening, and I think a lot of people are hoping that this leads to the first women's blood and guts. I think it should. I think they've shown that women's hardcore stuff, like the two street fights we've gotten, and Britt versus Thunder Rosa, big draws. Everybody loves it, and they're some of the better women's matches in the company. And with the talent you've assembled at this point, it feels like now's the time to do it. Especially with what's going on in your competition, with the women's division on the main roster and WWE being in not the best place right now. Toni gets back into the ring, nailing Ruby with a huge boot to the face, just laying her out, and a nasty hip attack lands to Ruby on the apron and sends Soho to the floor for the commercial break. Back from the break, Ruby controls with an attack in the corner, sending Toni face first in the bottom turnbuckle before delivering a Saito suplex and another suplex, and then a strike to drop Storm. The Destination Unknown gets looked for, but Toni rolls her up and grabs the tights, but Ruby gets out. No Future from Soho gets a near fall with Storm kicking out at the very last second. Ruby comes off the top with a senton, but corrects as she sees Toni move out of the way. Storm appears to tease her nose being re-injured, just crying and covering it as the ref checks on her. Ruby backs off before Storm just drops her face first onto the bottom rope and then just starts cackling and smirking like a proper heel. You'll love to see it. And Toni delivers just one of the most brutal hip attacks. The Sweet Cheeks music in the corner. This was nuts. And then a swingy DDT for a near fall. I really think she should start using the Sweet Cheeks music or whatever you're going to call it as her finish. I think it looks deadly enough that it would be like a knockout. After the near fall, Britt Baker's music hits as she taunts Toni here. Britt appears, and this allows Ruby to hit the Destination Unknown from behind, and Ruby Soho picks up the win over Toni Storm. Not a clean win, so it's fair. Toni's protected, but again, it shows Britt helping Ruby, and one would assume that this will lead to Ruby joining Britt's side, which is obviously an interesting dynamic, as Ruby and Britt had a big time feud that it was like 2021 and then came back in 2022. So a pretty big thing storyline wise. I thought this was a very good match. I don't know if I was expecting it to be a very good match. I really like Toni Storm a lot, and I think Ruby Soho is hit or miss, but tends to be pretty good. I thought they clicked here, and I thought Toni working as a heel just really helped this excel. It furthered storylines. It was a very well-worked match. And I thought Toni's heel work here was really strong. So, yeah, I gave this very good. I thought this was a very good match. MJF appears backstage and cuts a big promo here, dropping quite a line here, saying that unfortunately he has to speak to fans backstage in hiding as Bryan's gone mad, and that this wasn't the first time a Jew had to hide from a man with blue eyes. And then he bullies Takeshita for his Japanese name, but then puts him over saying that he thinks he's great, warns him to stay out of his business, and then talks about Bryan and what he's getting himself into, congratulates him on winning another match, but questions where he's going to be at physically, and says that next week he's going to face a man whose entire ring style is deconstructing his opponent limb by limb. And then we got a video package. I assumed when he said limb by limb, it was going to be Zack Sabre Jr. I was not expecting it to be Pro Wrestling Noah's Timothy Thatcher. I'll take it. I think Timothy Thatcher is really cool from what I've seen of him. I haven't seen all that much. I saw some of his stuff in NXT. But I liked him a lot. And he gets to wrestle Bryan Danielson. I think these two are going to have a great match. I think their styles will probably mesh very well. And then we got the announcement for AEW Rampage. And a video package to boot. Jamie Hayter versus Emi Sakura on TV. Emi Sakura has been one of the MVPs of the AEW Women's Division for the last year or so. Let me tell you when the last time this woman appeared on AEW television, not YouTube television. Let's check Cage Match. I genuinely think it's 2019, but I want to be sure. I don't want to slander here. 2019, 2021. I think it was 2019 against Big Swole on AEW Dynamite in a match that got 4.50 on Cage Match. To be fair, I don't know how many ratings this has. But the point is, Emi Sakura has been absolutely killing it on Dark Elevation and Dark, and anybody who attends live shows can tell you this because you can go see her wrestle, and she's great. This should be a great match between her and Jamie Hayter if given time, and it should. We have two matches in it. Again, Rampage isn't going to be two matches. We have Hangman Page versus Wheeler Yuta, Powerhouse Hobbs Speaks, and Jamie Hayter versus Emi Sakura. Something else will get added to this, unless something else did get added, and I didn't see it. Let's check. I don't see anything. I guess I'll check Twitter. But regardless, I like Emi Sakura quite a lot. I didn't like her in 2019 when she first showed up. Though that wasn't really because of her. That was mainly because I didn't like the Eddie Mercury gimmick that they gave her. So, it is what it is. But, yeah, it just looked like Wheeler Yuta versus Hangman Adam Page, Jamie Hayter versus Emi Sakura. Yeah, that's all that was announced. Okay. Sure. Why not? Anyways, that's that. I would have assumed they would have announced more, but I guess it was just those two. Again, there's probably going to be something else added to the show. But yeah, all right. And then Dynamite next week, we have Bryan Danielson versus Timothy Thatcher announced. Hangman Page versus Jon Moxley 3, the third match. The Acclaimed will be in tag team action, and Samoa Joe versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship in a no-holds-barred match. So between all of that seems like a pretty good string for AEW, especially considering the string they've been on of shows lately, specifically Dynamite, and then the Rampage that had the women's street fight. Some really great stuff this year. I'm probably going to tune into Rampage this week so I can see Hangman versus Wheeler and Jamie versus Emi. And then Dynamite next week. All three of the big matches seem like must-watch and an Acclaimed tag match, so it'll probably be fun. And that sends us to the main event, the special main event of Dynamite tonight, which was Jay Lethal taking on ROH World Tag Team Champion Mark Briscoe. This is a special main event tonight. I would see Mark Briscoe honor his fallen brother, Jay Briscoe. Again, we didn't do a podcast last week or anything, but obviously, if you're a wrestling fan, you probably know at this point that Jay Briscoe lost his life in an automobile accident last Tuesday. Just tragic. Thankfully, his children survived, but he lost his life, as did the driver of the other vehicle. The wrestling world has just been crazy supportive of this with the amount of money they've raised. There was even a tribute on NXT last week, like live during the show, as the news broke. So, crazy stuff. And again, like, it's just a wild thing. Like, I don't think anybody was expecting anything like this to happen, but it did. And yeah, it was an emotional thing to see here. You know, you had Caprice Coleman and Ian come out for commentary. You had Bobby Cruz doing the ring announcing. You had Jay coming out here just bawling with Sanjay Dutt. You could tell he was broken. Mark somehow came out and kept his composure for the entire thing. I no idea how he did that, but the man is strong. And then hearing Reach for the Sky as he plays out, and it's just an absolute travesty that Warner Brothers blocked them from coming into AEW before, but been perfectly okay with other things, including Power Slap, but whatever. It was a very bittersweet thing to see to see Mark Briscoe get this main event. Bitter in the sense that Jay should have been here with him, but obviously he couldn't because he's dead, and that sucks. And they should have been able to main event Dynamite before, but Warner Brothers decided to be awful. So, out of the gate, Mark and Lethal would wrestle to a standstill here. Mark eventually scores with a neck breaker, and we go back from commercial break. Mark and Jay would trade chops in the ring. Mark fires up with the redneck kung fu. Good reaction here from the crowd. Definitely didn't seem like they were like familiar with Mark Briscoe, but by the end of this, I think he sold him because again, Mark Briscoe is a very fun wrestler. Jay was obviously always the standout, but Mark had his own uniqueness to him in a good way. He comes off the top with an elbow. We had like a Pele style kick from Mark Briscoe that connects here, and he catches Lethal with an uppercut in the corner, and then the iconoclasm out of the corner. The lethal combination lands for 2. Jay drops Briscoe with a face buster and then lands the lethal injection, but Mark rolls to the floor. Great reaction. Jay teases putting Mark through a table at ringside, but Mark comes back to life. Flies off the apron with a running blockbuster to the floor. Lethal gets laid out onto the timekeeper's table with Mark climbing to a huge reaction and landing the froggy bow through the table, getting a holy shit chant here. Mark tosses Jay back into the ring. Lethal kicks out after the time spent on the floor. We get a tease of the Jay Driller, but Lethal gets out. Lethal combination gets looked for. The lethal injection gets looked for, not the lethal combination, but Mark gets him with the lariat. Jay Driller teased a second time, but instead Mark goes for the lariat again before hitting the Jay Driller as Mark Briscoe wins. It was a great match. Again, this was just like an emotional thing to see. Like, I've seen the Briscoes wrestle a bunch in person from going to ROH in Philly. And like, again, I first saw it in 2015, and they were all over those shows. So again, it's just like a weird thing to like talk about, like that Jay's like no longer here. Like, we'll never see another Jay Briscoe match, but I thought this is a great way to just be able to honor him by putting Mark in the main event of Dynamite, by putting him up against Jay's biggest rival, and just delivering just an all-around great wrestling match. And then we had, after the match, the roster emptied out on stage here. You get to see the Young Bucks, Samoa Joe, Hangman, Toni, Marina Shafir, Madison Rayne, Brody King, Roosh. Just a bunch of people that, you know, all knew the Briscoes from their time in Ring of Honor or elsewhere. BJ Whitmer, Sanjay came out again, Matt Hardy. Just a bunch of people. Blake Christian, I peeped he was there. I'm assuming he was there for Dark. But, so yeah, it was just a very nice way to tribute. And the closing shot of Mark with the two titles, the ROH tag belts, and the picture of Jay on the big screen and the roster behind him. It was just a very, you know, emotional way to end the show. But this is well done and, you know, tasteful and everything. So that was Dynamite. I don't think this was a show worth skipping this week. I thought you had a great main event. You had a great match between Danielson and Brian Cage. You had a very strong women's match between Ruby Soho and Toni Storm. You had a fun match with JungleHOOK versus Ethan Page and Matt Hardy. You had a very good to great match between Darby Allin versus Buddy Matthews. Again, didn't see the full thing. And then you had a very good opening match with Guevara and Jericho versus Starks and Andretti. So I thought it was a very fun show, and just, again, emotional tribute stuff for Jay Briscoe, and rightfully so, because he deserves it. So that's Dynamite for January 25th, 2023. I do want to mention, just because, again, I got time, it's only been like 35 minutes. It's shorter than I thought. This weekend, again, there's the Royal Rumble. I don't know if we'll do a predictions podcast, but we will probably have a review out for the show. So just going over the card of this pay-per-view here, we have 5 matches announced. Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight in a Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, whatever that is, and the 2 Rumble matches. The men's has a decent amount. They have 15 of the 30, so they have half. Your big names: Kofi Kingston, Santos Escobar, Ricochet, Austin Theory, Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, Baron Corbin, Rey Mysterio, Gunther, Cody Rhodes, Omos, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, Karrion Kross. The women's match has 7 people announced. I feel like this was somewhat similar to last. No, last year was they announced like everybody, and there was like the worst surprises. So this year we have 7 women announced. I would assume there's going to be a lot of NXT people in this. You have Liv Morgan, Candice LeRae, Rhea Ripley, Raquel Gonzalez, Shayna Baszler, Zelina Vega, and Emma. So basically the entire SmackDown women's division, minus like Tegan Nox and Ronda Rousey, and obviously the champion, and then 2 people from Raw. So there you have it. That's the Royal Rumble. Again, my assumption here is that you're probably getting like Cody Rhodes or Sami Zayn winning the Rumble. For the women at this point, from who we have announced, Rhea seems like the only person that has a chance at that. Bray Wyatt versus, I don't care. Roman versus Kevin Owens, that'll be good. Roman Reigns wins. Bianca versus Alexa, Bianca better win that match. So yeah, that's the Royal Rumble. Impact Wrestling's tomorrow night. They have their golden 6-shooter match to determine the new number 1 contender for Josh Alexander's belt. Ryan and Angela will talk about that when they do their review for that show. Obviously, I haven't seen the show, so I can't review it because it's Wednesday. So yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for listening if you made it through this. If you did and you're new still, please consider subscribing wherever you're listening to. We appreciate it. And I'll talk to you in the next episode that I'm a part of. I've been Pat, and thank you for listening to the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. Have a good night or good day.